Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. And as usual, as lately, I'll remind you to join the mailing list just in case YouTube decides to remove me for whatever reason, just in case I say things that YouTube doesn't like. You can join the mailing list at CanadaReport.co or at CanadaPoly.com and join in the conversation at CanadaPoly.com. We have an active forum with lots of members, and it's quite an active conversation, so feel free to join us. All right, let's get into the news. And today, starting out, Mr. Polyev is discussing inflation taxes and the reason for the inflation taxes. This is a good clip. I like this clip because he encapsulates what the alternatives are, and he gives an example for what Harper did during similarly challenging economic times, and then says why it worked, and then outlines why what the Liberals are doing doesn't work, and then he asks a question. And of course, he doesn't get an answer to the question, but I think it's a well-asked question, and so we'll listen to it. I understand that Polyev is a paper tiger. I understand that not much is going to change. I mean, he's not even the finance critic, right? But it's a well-asked question, so we'll listen to it because I think it's important. Okay, here we go. As soon as this pops up. There we go.
Carlton. During the Great Global Recession, the Harper government refused to fund spending through money printing at the Bank of Canada. The result was we ended up having better growth than the US, better than the G7, better than the average of the advanced economies. Fast forward to present, the government is funding its spending through money printing at the Bank of Canada, leading to the worst economic growth of any government since the Great Depression, and now, predictably, inflation. As Canadians struggle to find work, they're seeing food, fuel, and housing prices skyrocket. Why is this government imposing an inflation tax right in the middle of a pandemic crisis? Honourable Minister.
And so we're not gonna go back and listen to what the minister's response is. The minister's response is we're supporting Canadians with, making sure that Canadians are being supported in this unprecedented time. Is basically the speech. That's the boilerplate speech. But what's important here is the Liberals are doing this by spending this money, by printing and spending this money. The Bank of Canada has bought up all of the deficit debt. It's all paper. It's all magic money, printed money, right? And that's notable. They're doing this, says Polyev, and they're implementing this tax in order to save us. Is that true? I don't know. Did you watch the video from the other day on the inflation and the hyperinflation and what triggers it, right? Similar situation is taking shape in Canada, and not that that's undeniable, but in every other situation, they said, no, couldn't happen here, right? Not going to happen. We're a modern economy, said Venezuela, right? Right? Modern economy. It's not happening here. Here. So, it is quite concerning to see how things are shaping up, to see how the government is doubling down on their strategy with hubris, right? They think that they're untouchable. There's no way it could possibly tank. There's no way. It's not in the cards. Not going to happen. Okay, moving into some governance. Trinity Bible College in Waterloo has had its door locked. Okay, Trinity Bible College is a church that meets in Waterloo, Ontario, and seeks to reach the entire Waterloo region with the gospel of Jesus. Okay, Jesus Christ. Sorry, I didn't mean to drop that. My bad. Our building is now completely locked up and we are unable to use it even to record a sermon. An online service will be posted at some point tomorrow once we've had a chance to record a message. We will post it here and to our online service page as soon as it's available. This is the collection of police, bylaw, news media, and a locksmith that all showed up for the locking of our doors. This was ordered by a judge. So the other day I told you about two different court decisions. One was an Ontario AG, the Attorney General, said that you can't lock this church up until May 13th. And the other one was in Calgary, and they said, arrest that pastor by any means necessary. So very different responses. And this, there's a blog. Hold on. There's a blog post outlining the order given by the judge, and I'll go through it now. Here it is. We lost the building and kept the church, says the blog post. I'll just read this part. Today, a court granted the province of Ontario the authority to take our facility at least until next Saturday, with the option of trying to get it for longer by going to court once again this coming week. For some of these 11 months in our facility, we've met in contravention of the provincial dictates. We have participated in what the public health people consider high-risk behavior, namely the millennial-old tradition of gathering weekly to worship our Creator. None of our pastors has ever buried someone who has died of COVID. We have around 600,000 people who live in this region. There are 588 active cases of COVID in the region, with 32 people in the ICU with COVID. That's enough to deem the public worship of Jesus Christ dangerous, and enough for the province of Ontario to kick us off our land and bar our doors shut. I'm not saying we'll never bury someone who dies of COVID. I'm not saying that COVID hasn't brought harm. I'm only saying our experience doesn't line up with the hysteria whipped up by government and media, nor do the numbers warrant turning control of the bride of Christ over to the Premier of Ontario. Very interesting situation. It's not as high profile. It's not as big as the other ones, but it is an impactful decision. I don't know how they got there, and I'll mention, and I don't know if this is an Eastern, like a church that worships Eastern Orthodox. I don't think it is, but it is Orthodox Easter this weekend, right? Like this is Orthodox Easter. So locking churches up on Orthodox Easter. Now, I'm not trying to bridge two things here. I'm not trying to, like, if these guys don't celebrate Orthodox Easter, then it's just a regular Sunday for them. But still, the symbolism of locking up a church on Orthodox Easter, because it did get locked on Sunday, right? It got locked on on the Saturday to the Saturday, right? So right over Orthodox Easter weekend. Wild, right? Like that is unexpected in Canada. Unexpected? Not unexpected, exactly. I was paying attention when the churches were burned across southwestern Ontario, right? Last year, right? All sorts of suspicious fires and stuff. I don't know. So not wholly unexpected, but certainly unprecedented in our history. How's that? The rodeo is on. Getting into protests, there are people who are putting on a rodeo. So yay! Rodeo is on in Alberta, so go enjoy it if you can get there. It is a protest after all. Speaking of protests, Maxime Bernier was in Montreal marching with a really big crowd, and I'll show you some aerial footage of them. Here's Bernier talking to a reporter, I guess, Candidature, and here's that. We'll get this larger. Here we go.
Hello everybody from all across the country. I'm in Montreal right now in a big rally, very big. I think we have almost 100,000 people here that's fighting for your freedom, for our freedom, and that's only the beginning. We are sending a strong message to these establishment politicians. Enough is enough. We must stop these draconian lockdowns right now.
That is the only federal
leader. Big rally.
Sorry, everyone. That's the only federal leader talking about that. The Green Party leader's not talking about it. Aaron O'Toole's not talking about that. Jagmeet Singh is not talking about this. Justin Trudeau's not talking about this. The only federal leader talking about ending the lockdowns is Maxime Bernier. So that's notable, interesting, sets him apart. Does that make him fringe? That what they're trying to make him fringe. First he was racist, right? First PPC's racist. Now fringe for standing up for the basic charter rights. And Warren Kinsella, who's a snake in the grass, who I wouldn't let water my plants, let alone step foot on my property. Warren Kinsella wrote this whole article talking about, they have maskless protests, right? They're trying to just behaving normally, which this is normal campaigning. This is exactly what Bernier should be doing, okay? And this is what party leaders should be doing. They should be out among the public, not sit on Zoom meetings with hand-picked students who love to sit there in their mask on Zoom. Oh, it's just awful. Anyway, this is what Bernier should be doing, right? Going out, seeing the public, speaking out in public, defining himself against what's on offer in Ottawa. And what's on offer in Ottawa is out-of-touch politicians who are listening to out-of-touch science tables who are accepting big bucks from EFTO and others, right? As outlined in their conflict of interest submissions that are public knowledge. So that's interesting, right? And it's interesting how things are being reported. Now, I'll show you further. Viva Frei was at the protest as well, and he's talking about how big the protest is. And he says, let's see how Canadian media report on the massive protest in Montreal today. And I'll just give you a flavor of what he's talking about.
Incredible is there are literally tens of thousands of people here, tens of thousands of people expressing.
Okay, so he's excited about the amount of people who are out at protest in Montreal, and he says at the end of this, I wonder how it's going to be reported. Well, here's an interesting switch in the reporting. JP Odysee says, the fact that this wasn't reported as hundreds of anti-maskers shows that the tide is turning. Global National says thousands march in Montreal in protest of COVID-19 health measures. So they're reporting it, right? That's new. That's a departure from what you would expect, possibly, right? Here's an aerial view from Marie Oakes. She works with Lauren Chen, as far as I know. But like, that's a lot of people, right? Like when you need a drone view like that, I'll get a better. Yeah, there we go. That's a lot of people, right? Pretty interesting. It's hard to protest in Canada because even when you get massive turnout, it still kind of looks small because we're so big, right? Like, I mean, that's a massive turnout. That's huge. That's huge. Look at that drone footage. That is a massive turnout, and people in Montreal should be very proud of themselves. But at the same time, well, I'll show you. Even the backlash on Bill C-10 didn't turn the tide as much as I hoped it would, and we'll talk about that before we move over to the redacted version of the show. Here's Ezra Levent saying, it's for your health, in response to Montreal police choke man for not wearing a mask. More to come. So this is more police violence. We've seen lots of police violence. This is not to say this is nothing new, but yeah, it's nothing new, right? It's nothing new. And the fact that it's nothing new and people are desensitized to this, and it's similar. It reminds me when the police got violent in the yellow vests. It starts on the fringe, right? It starts with, oh yeah, that guy, blah, 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 right? Maybe he was mouthy, maybe he was this, or whatever. Maybe you can justify that there was a reason that he deserved it, right? And then it just turned into all out like fisticuffs. Same thing's happening in the UK, except they're starting to fight back. They're starting to push back against the police who are coming in and getting violent, right? I've seen violent police as well in the Netherlands. So that's, I mean, very, very interesting happening here too. What we see, the trends we see that are happening in Australia and the UK, New Zealand, to a lesser extent, the blue states, but similar, the moving patients into long-term care beds. But I talked about that yesterday. It's a necessary thing and is set up by problems in the long-term care industry. But anyway, the trends we see happening in other places eventually do come here. We have seen, even when we talked about Manitoba and having non-essential items locked up here, I said they're trying to do it here. They're trying to do it here. 6 months later, yep, right? That's what we're living under. Wild. Absolutely wild. Schools. What's the difference between daycare and school? Do you know the answer to this riddle? Right? It's not a funny riddle. It's just a true riddle. Unions are the difference. Unions make the difference. And in this case, apparently the unions intervened in the CDC to slow walk schools reopening. Really? Teacher union collaborated with the CDC on school reopening guidance. Apparently before that, everything was going to go ahead as planned, right? This should ruin the CDC. If they can be corrupted by special interests instead of truly following the science, they're an untrustworthy organization. And this didn't hurt anyone. It hurt kids, disproportionately. It hurt poor kids at that. But anyway, the CDC, before the unions got involved, we're going to say that there's no reason to keep schools closed, even with community spread, because there's no reason for it, right? And then the unions got involved. So, very, very interesting. Okay, getting into free speech. Michael Geist says, it's becoming clear that Bill C-10 has crossed the line. Post Media was reluctant to criticize Mr. Gallibo, the heritage minister who's responsible for C-10, given hopes for media bailout. No longer, as editorial boards aren't holding back. Intent of Bill C-10 is censorship, says the editorial, right, at the Post Media. So that's happening. Heritage Committee won't reverse change to Bill C-10 despite public outcry. Yeah, sorry about your luck. Now, I've said before that this violates the basic charter rights, so there'd be a legal challenge to this if it passes the House, like if it goes through. And I mean, the Senate needs to have a look at this as well. But I think fundamentally, the Liberals don't expect to pass this. And if they can just create more press to keep this stinky press news cycle alive, then they'll do that, right? Like, oh, the committee's not going to walk anything back. I don't know that it matters, right? I don't know that it matters. It won't. I don't think it'll get through the becoming a bill. And all of the information is in the headline. There's nothing new in the body of the paragraph. It doesn't say they met at an emergency thing and discussed anything. Nope, none of that happened. They're like, no, we're just not doing anything. Michael Geist says, if you think Mr. Gellibo has struggled to explain the removal of user-generated content protections in Bill C-10, imagine what's coming with his online harms bill that he has said will include nationwide website blocking and mandated 24-hour takedowns. So it's not just that one bill. It's a two-pronged attack on the internet in Canada, and they have every intention of following through with destroying access to the internet as we know it. And that is very, very unfortunate. I like the internet as we know it. I liked it better in 2011, but whatever. Things that have passed and will never be again, right? James is a UK guy, and he says, look at how much money the UK government are tendering out for media buying services right now. 322 million pounds, which is roughly twice it's roughly $700 million of taxpayers' money. 322 million pounds of taxpayer money is about to be spaffed away on government advertising. And this perhaps explains why our media doesn't bite the hand that feeds them. It's the same strategy they use in Canada. It's exactly the same one, except Trudeau was more transparent about it, right? He was just transparent. Up front, open about it. He just said clearly, we're going to give the media $1 billion. Cool. And in addition to this CBC $1 billion, we're also going to give the media $600 million. Why? Because we like the media and we need them. That's it. That's all they needed to say. In the UK, it's being done with advertising, but in Canada, it is all about it's all just about, we're just going to give them money. Okay, Canadians? I don't even think they say okay. They're just like, we're just going to give them money, and this is your money, but we're signing off on it. Boop, done. And Canadians go, yep, no problem. Anyway, the rest of the show is going to be on Rumble, so check that out. Or Rumble, Odysee, and BitChute. Check that out. The redacted portion, because I'm going to talk about things that YouTube doesn't like now, and YouTube's kind of sensitive. So thanks for watching. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out SpeakingMoistly.co, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.